We can get older, give a gift, everything you touch.
We're good? It's 7 o'clock, so we'll call this meeting to order. You stand for the invocation, please, and they stand for the pledge. Doug, will you lead us?
Well, if you'll bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for all the wonderful things you give us. We thank you for the ability to live in America. And we thank you for all the blessings that we have, and we hope that you'll help us to take care of the responsibilities we have so that you would be glorified. Help us to act tonight on behalf of those people that we represent. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for both October 19th regular and the work session meetings. You provided those in your packet. Do I hear a motion to approve these minutes?
So order.
Second?
Second.
Any additions, corrections? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Greathouse?
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker?
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves?
Yes.
Councilmember Head?
Yes.
All right, adoption of the agenda. Do we have any additions, corrections, or anything?
Not at this time, Mayor.
All right, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So order.
Motion and second. Any comments? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Greathouse?
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker?
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves?
Yes.
Councilmember Head?
Yes. All right, next item is the police promotion recognition by Chief Richardson.
Good evening, thank you, council, for giving me a few minutes. We have had for some time a few sergeant vacancies and corporal vacancies within the department. We've actually hired some of those positions outside because they've been vacant. Well, about 2 months ago, we had a handful of our own officers internally that became eligible for those positions. And so we put together and did a promotional assessment for those ranks, which was the rank of corporal and rank of sergeant. Doing those assessments, we had 3 successful candidates that passed those assessments and have been promoted at the department. And I just wanted to bring them before you tonight and present them with their promotion certificate of promotion, and just recognize them and their achievements at the department. I know Matt, if you, or actually, let me start with Pete. Pete, if you want to come on up. Pete is being promoted from patrolman to the rank of corporal. I do want to speak a little bit about Pete, because Pete, you're on YouTube, right? Pete came to us with a lot of experience, and Pete has instructor certifications in a lot of different areas and field. And to be perfectly honest with you, when I hired Pete, I told Pete that he could come in and be hired as a sergeant, that he was qualified and eligible. And Pete told me, he said, "No, Chief, I want to come in and I want to work my way up." So he came in and he's been with us for a little over a year now. He tested, did excellent. Matter of fact, he probably scored one of the highest scores we've had so far since we've been doing assessments. But Pete does a really good job for us. He is currently an investigator in CID, and we're very excited about a new program we're about to start. We're actually about to, I spoke with Russell about it today, but we're about to start an internal jiu-jitsu for law enforcement class to teach our officers jiu-jitsu for takedowns and holds and placing people in custody. And Pete is an instructor in those areas and a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So I know he doesn't look like a tough guy, but no one mess with Pete. So anyways, Pete, congratulations on your promotion. Appreciate it. Yours. Your picture. Next we have Matt Allen. Many of you know Matt. Matt's been with us for a while. Matt was also working in CID as an investigator, and with his recent became eligible for sergeant. He went through and he did very well on the assessment as well. And Matt has recently been transferred to narcotics, and he's taking the sergeant position in our narcotics unit and working in the task force. And Matt's only been over there for, I think, maybe 2 weeks, and he's already made several cases and 4 arrests, drug arrests, and seized some drugs. So he's doing a really good job already right out of the hole. So we appreciate that. Thank you, Matt. And we did have a third, which again is one many of you know, was Corporal Jared Fordham, our canine officer. Fordham had been very reluctant to test. He actually has been qualified for a while and was reluctant because he didn't want to give up his canine. He's got the canine. At this point in time, we've decided to let him hold on to the canine for the time being. But he tested and did very well on the assessment as well, and does a very good job. So Corporal Fordham would have been promoted and recognized tonight. Well, he has been promoted to sergeant now, but we would have recognized tonight. But he's out on maternity leave. He has a new baby at home. So he couldn't be with us tonight for that, but I just want to recognize him as well. And thank you all for your time.
Thank you. All right. Next is the city attorney's report.
Nothing at this time, Mayor.
All right. City clerk's report.
Nothing at this time?
Anything from the city engineer?
Not at this time, Mayor.
All right. Now we move to public comments. We have Mr. Self with us tonight. Glad to have him here. He'll be speaking, and you have your 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll have to talk pretty fast. My name is Gary Staff. I live at 226 Roberts Loop. That is in the county, but I own 2 properties in the city, so I get to pay taxes in the city and I get to pay my utility bill, just like everybody else does. But I don't get to vote in the city elections. So I need to come and tell y'all, I guess, what I think about certain situations. I want to talk about the Lakeside Park tonight. I'm a regular visitor to Lakeside Park. I was out there on the grand opening, and y'all were too, and y'all saw what, it would look like when there's a lot of people out there. I came by there on my way on here, and the parking lot was full. Obviously, the parking lot is not big enough. I think very strongly that the entrance and the parking area is in the wrong place. It does not need to be there. I'm sure y'all saw all of the donuts, if you want to call it that someone put out there because they could drive in that fence and go anywhere that they wanted to out there. I think that we should put the parking lot over at the water tank and use that entrance over there, but use a pedestrian entrance and do not open up the gate so anybody can go in onto the driveway, onto the park, the walking areas with a vehicle. That has been there a long time. I'm afraid if you keep driving vehicles on that asphalt out there, you're going to tear it all to pieces. You're going to have to put it back in there, do it again, do something. There's plenty of room over at the water tank to have a good size parking area. So if we have an event out there, I didn't go to the fishing one, but I'm sure that they was all parked on the asphalt to get to the fishing area over there. And that's the wrong thing to do, in my opinion. There's plenty of room over there to put the parking lot over there. Plus the fact, I personally think it's unsafe. I'm an old person. When I go out there like that, I went to an AARP discussion, and old people ain't supposed to turn left because you have to cross 2 lanes of traffic. Now, so I think it's unsafe over there with that entrance. It would not be unsafe over at the water tank. I have a police report right here. This was on the 13th, 5 days after the park opened. There's a car crash out there, 15 feet from B Street. So it's not something I'm making up. It is something that actually has happened out there, and we need to think about, I think y'all need to think about doing something about having a parking area that you can put enough people in with an event. I'd love to see a senior citizen day. You did that, you had to put them all into the pavement out there, and they don't need to be there. Twice I've gone out there to walk, and I have to walk in the grass because of the truck that goes in that empties the porta john. He's parked on the asphalt, and I have to walk in the grass, in the wet grass, so that I can get around that truck. If you put it over on the other side, he can come down in there. He can only go in there with a key. He can't go in there just anytime willy-nilly. I don't think it needs to be open to the public for vehicles all the time, because you can see what happens when they went out there and put all those donuts out there. You know, I think it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. But if the gate's locked and you got a place for the pedestrians or the people to go into, then you can use the park any way you need to use it, but you don't get to drive all the way around, all the way through that thing on your vehicle. On that first day, the day I went, I walked around it. I had to leave the track for a vehicle that was coming through there, wasn't supposed to, but I had to get over in the grass again to be able to let that vehicle come down. I would like for y'all to think about that, see if you can't get something straightened out, in my opinion, straightened out about that. I thank you for listening.
Appreciate you coming. Thank you. All right, next item is the city manager's report.
First item for council's consideration is discussion, potential appointment of members to the Pine Mountain Regional Library Board. I believe you have attached with your packet, headed I-1, a letter from the library director, and at this time, if mayor and council has any consideration for appointments.
All right, dude, Ashton, ballot.
Does anybody else have any other?
I had another one too. Susie Burgess is very good. She's the president of First Foundation, which provides books to children from birth up to 5 years old. She's the media specialist at Upson.
When was your appointment done? Did you call it tonight?
Ashton Fallon.
Ashton, A-S-H-T-O-N, Ballot. Ashton Hewitt, Ballot, H-E-W-I-T-T, Ballot, F-A-L-L-I-N.
You've talked to her about
I did.
this as well. She's on some other committees of ours already. That
And Doug, you said Susie.
Susie Burgess, again, she's president of First Foundation. It's called First Readers, which seeks to provide books to children from birth all the way up to 5. Particularly helpful for children that don't have the resources, or families that don't have the resources. And she's the media specialist over at Upson Primary, specialist degree in curriculum and instruction and reading specialist.
we only have one opening. Is there another one later or?
Not
This
that
year?
I'm aware of. The term is, they meet quarterly at 6 p.m. on the second Tuesday, I believe. It's a 3-year term. Yeah, there's only one opening currently.
The preference of the council or who they want on this. So you got 2 recommendations. One's
What do we want?
How do we want
to talk about it at the next meeting?
think about it. Vote next time. Either one. It's
Yeah.
your preference.
Yeah. I mean, I think that might be
So you want to table this to the next meeting?
We'll vote on it next meeting after we've had 2 names, so we take 2 names, come back with who we want for that.
Motion to table.
Have a motion to table this to Doug. You want to make a motion to table it?
I'll make a motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Greathouse?
All right.
Councilmember Middlebrooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker?
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves?
Yes.
Councilmember Head?
Yes.
Next item for council's consideration is discussion and approval for execution to modify Electric Cities of Georgia interparticipant contract for joint purchasing services. Attached with your packet headed I-2, you should have the related documentation followed by a resolution that would in effect meet the intent of the request. So what we have here is the city is a member of Electric Cities of Georgia. They have a group of its members who participate in joint purchase contract where ECG on behalf of the members will go out and they'll secure pricing for transformers or poles or wire, anything that the electric department may need. And that's a 6-month updatable pricing mechanism where they handle the procurement for you. There's a price for that service, and the original agreement was that the members who participate in the joint purchasing agreement pay for that service, but there was a cap set at 7.5%, right, of the total cost per entity. Well, different agencies or cities have pulled out of that, and ECG is now having to go into their reserve funds to subsidize the joint purchasing arm of their operation. And what they are requesting is that 7.5% cap to be removed. And the cost is what the cost is, and is split amongst the participants who partake in the joint service, the joint purchasing agreement. So you have kind of a list of the conversations via email that went back and forth between me and John Giles. My main concern was that if we remove the cap on the joint purchasing, the budget for that service would be set by all of the MEAG members and voted on by all of the MEAG members, but only paid for by the small portion of the cities that utilize the service. So he ran the calculation based on this year's budget, and our increase would have been about $765. What he has reiterated to me is that due to the fact that they're removing the cap, some of the cost allocated to joint services would be reallocated to the general ECG budget, and has assured me that the cost is actually going to go down for the next fiscal year. If for whatever reason that were not the case and the cost were to escalate, there's a 2-year out on the contract, I wouldn't anticipate budgetary increases. You know, if we're at $765 this year, I don't think the price would be too overwhelming that it breaks you before you can out on that contract. So in conversation with the electric department, based on their current utilization of the joint purchasing process through ECG, Neil's a big proponent of it. My recommendation to council is to authorize the resolution on behalf of the city of Thomaston to remove the cap pertaining to the joint purchasing agreement with Electric Cities of Georgia.
You've heard that recommendation. I hear a motion.
So ordered.
Second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Greathouse.
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Yes.
Councilmember Head.
Yes. The next item for council's consideration is the discussion to authorize the demolition for a portion of property that was deeded to the city by Macedonia Baptist Church. It has the expenditure needs to be authorized, but the expenditure is within the city manager's authority to expend. That is more there for you to understand the cost of the demolition. This was a substandard property that was identified by code enforcement for potential demolition. Is they got into the process, there was an agreement, I believe, between the deacons of Macedonia Baptist and the city to transfer ownership of that property over to the city so that it can be demolished. So we are the holder of that property. That's closed.
Yes.
Correct. And I believe that transaction was ran by the city council prior to execution. In talking with the city attorney, I think it's appropriate, since we are a holder of the property, that there be some formal action to actually demolish the structure. And once that action has been voted on, the city will cause that to be done via contract paper. So staff's recommendation is to authorize the demolition of the property. Do you have a proper name for that property?
I had the address, I don't remember
210
what it is.
Daniel Street.
210 Daniel Street.
Do we have a church and state conflict here?
We own it.
Okay.
You've heard that recommendation. I hear.
So let me ask you, are we bidding on who's gonna do the work?
No, well, I'm going to authorize the award to the low bid.
Yeah.
These are just supplemental attachments so that you see we have received quotes for the demolition, but it's within my authority. So the formal action would be just to demolish the property.
Okay. All right,
I'll offer that in form of a motion.
and I'll second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Greathouse.
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Yes.
Councilmember Head.
Yes.
Next item for council's discussion is the authorization of award to Allen Smith Consulting for grant writing services and administration for a potential 2022 CDBG grant application. We do not have a scope yet. DCA has changed their policies on grant writing, administration, and engineering. We now have to go through formal procurement on the front end for grant writing services as well as engineering services. Traditionally, we've contracted with Allen Smith Consulting. We'll get a preliminary engineering report. They'll submit a CDBG application to the Department of Community Affairs for the benefit of low to moderate incomes individuals. Traditionally, we've done sewer projects. I would envision that we will finish phase 2 of what we started over off Avenue N. Remember, the scope kind of got out of whack when we bid it. This would be a phased approach, but nonetheless, because we're required to go through formal procurement, we did do that. We only received one solicitation for the grant writing and the administration. That was from Allen Smith Consulting. There's an additional process we have to go through since it's sole source with the Department of Community Affairs. So with regards to item 4, staff's recommendation is for council to award grant writing and administrative services for the 2022 CDBG project to Allen Smith Consulting, and all of that is pending and conditional upon sole source approval from the Department of Community Affairs.
You been satisfied with our experience with them historically?
They haven't missed one yet.
With that, I'll make a motion.
And Russell, I think they've been working with us for decades.
I utilize them in Milledgeville and in North Georgia. They're pretty good.
So you got first and a second.
No motion, Ms. Reeves seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Grants?
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker?
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves?
Yes.
Councilmember Hay?
Yes.
Next item for council's consideration is a discussion and authorization of award for the engineering, design, and construction administration. And this should be for the 2022 CDBG project. So just like we talked about grant administration, we had to do a solicitation for engineering services. I believe we had submittals from 5 different companies. Is that correct? Oasis.
Yes.
There was a panel put together. They were independently graded, and staff's recommendation based on those awards is to award, or based on those reviews, is to award the engineering, design, and construction admin for the 2022 CDBG project to ESG Engineering. One of the notes that I did make in my write-up was their historical knowledge with regard to our sewer and water infrastructure and previous designs and work on CDBG projects with regard to Avenue N. And this being a carryover project, there would be some symmetry there in the engineering and design. So staff's recommendation is to award the engineering, design, and construction administration for the 2022 CDBG project to ESG Engineering.
What do they do, don't be?
Well, it wasn't a bid, Ms. Reeves, it was a qualification submittal. Most professional services are. There was a fee schedule, and I believe 4 of the 5 applicants bid at 8% of the construction price with a 0 cost for the preliminary engineering report. One of the submittals, I think, was at 12% construction, so they were all pretty much consistent in their pricing.
ESG was at 8%.
Yes, as were 4 others. And I think they bid it that way because there is an allowable amount in the grant award for engineering.
Make a motion.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Grants?
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker?
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves?
Yes.
Councilmember Hay?
Yes. Next item for council's consideration is discussion and authorization to purchase a pump for the park pond at Greatest Generation Park. If you remember back a few years, there used to be a pump that sprayed water at Greatest Generation Park. It played out. It's not been in operation. Yeah, there it is right there. It has not been in operation in several years. And due to cost, we just haven't had it replaced. The repair cost exceeds the replacement cost. You have attached copies of pricing that I have received. We got that from ESG, our ops group, headed I-6 in your packet. And staff's recommendation is in accordance with our ops group, is for $27,046.50 for lake specialist. It is a little bit more, and I would like to pretend that I could tell you about the intricacies of pumps that pump fountains. I defer to our ops group. You know, they have vast more knowledge and experience when it comes to pumping water. So this is their recommendation, and based on their recommendation is my recommendation to the city council. Some of the complaints that we did have in the past regarding the old pump was due to the height of the spray. And when the wind would kick up, sometimes you had blowover on the Highway 19 or people walking in the park. That was a 20 horsepower pump. This is a 7.5 horsepower pump, so you're going to get a lower spray, but it does have LED lighting, this color control. So for holiday seasons and stuff like that, you know, if you're Christmas, you want to do red and green, or other times white lights, that will be applicable. There is funding for this project in ESG's rebatable account that we appropriate on an annualized basis. So this is technically budgeted money and will not require a budget amendment for expenditure.
It'll be like the Bellagio in Vegas.
No, it won't, but I think the actual pattern, or maybe he didn't include the pattern, but I have the documentation on the actual fan pattern of the fountain. It looks good.
So we're not going with the lowest bid.
No, staff's recommendation is $27,046.50 to lake specialist.
The other one was going to get a deposit.
Yeah, Brian had some concern about requesting money up front for the pump, being a governmental entity, and his preference was the other company. I can't substantiate that in technical specifications based on the pump, but I defer to their knowledge of all that.
That's a whole lot of difference in it.
It looks like the warranty is a little bit longer on, by a year on the other one. So I guess you get a little bit extra year of warranty for the parts and labor.
All right, you've heard that recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker?
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves?
Yes.
Councilmember Head?
Yes.
Next item for council's consideration is potential action and authorization to enter a moratorium. You have attached with your packet headed I-7, an ordinance that was prepared by the city attorney, and the intent and effect of this moratorium will be regarding convenience stores only, specific to new construction or the moving of one current business to a different location. As was discussed with our alcohol ordinance, current stores in operation would not be precluded from receiving renewals or additional license or other permits from the city, but this would in effect bar future development of convenience stores and convenience stores only. We have received our market analysis back as part of the master plan that was conducted for downtown by WLA Studio, part of which generated a saturation or supply and demand gap or excess for particular venues, and I can't recall the specifics, but there was an explicit supply overage with regards to convenience stores, not only for the city of Thomaston tract, but also for the greater Upson County tract. So based on that data, we drafted our zoning ordinance to accommodate that saturation, to preclude future development for that type of service. With that said, the zoning ordinance is not complete, right? We've had a litany of issues. We had to take 1965 into 2021. We had to pair the sign ordinance to that, and we had to wait on the master plan and the SWOT analysis, which tied our market data back to what we wanted to achieve through our zoning designations. So, council's options are to let this particular moratorium lapse, and we get what we get until we can achieve our new zoning, or we can extend this moratorium for a specific period of time sufficient enough to finish the zoning map, run the zoning language through the zoning commission, have the required public hearings that are statutorily required, and then bring it to council for your consideration and vote.
How long do you think it would be before we're ready to adopt our zoning order?
90 days.
And my guess is your preference is to extend it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we need to extend it 120 days just to give you a bit of wiggle room.
Are we talking about the moratorium that's in place now, or this one?
This is a new moratorium.
Yeah, I just want to make it clear.
So this would be the entering into a new one as the other one.
Expires
It's
on
gone.
November 4th.
Yep. And I believe there's some language where you made reference to our marketing data that we've received and so forth. So I think we could substantiate that we have worked in good faith to address the issues and concerns of the city by market study, by working with our consultant, in trying to take a hard paper map that was drafted in AutoCAD to convert to a GIS system and something that we have that's nice for the city, that is easy to use. So I know that our zoning consultant has been in contact with our GIS specialist, and they are fine-tuning the map, which is the last piece of the zoning, and as soon as that is completed, we'll schedule time for the zoning commission. Because it is a change to the zoning ordinance, it does require it to go through zoning. It has to have public hearings before it comes to city council.
For the period of time when you suggesting we extend, we adopt this ordinance for what period of time?
Somewhere between 90 and 120 days.
You said 100.
Yeah.
So Russell, make a recommendation. You want to go with
Staff's recommendation is for council to authorize the execution of the ordinance for the entrance into a new moratorium for a period of 120 days.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further
Is there
discussion?
any material difference between what was?
There's a little bit more beef, I think, in that ordinance because it does tie to some of the SWOT analysis
Okay.
and work that's been completed.
When we did the initial moratorium, we didn't have all that data, and so this is specifically to convenience stores due to the saturation, and it does relate back to the market analysis and the need for us to get the zoning finished and finalized.
Okay. Thank you.
And the good thing about it is that shows that analysis was done pretty well, and it shows where you have excess capacity and where you have less than, and this was a case where you had excess supply, so, here's where we're.
I mean, it's great, but this moratorium is strictly for convenience, it's essential for convenience, for like strictly. Like I've got some businesses in downtown that are trying to open and they can't right now because of the moratorium. So the current moratorium in place with it lapsing does open the door up for some of the business growth that I'm trying to generate in downtown.
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Mover?
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker?
Yes.
Councilmember Reed?
Yeah.
Councilmember?
Yes.
Next item for council's consideration is discussion and potential authorization for the bylaws of the HPC or Historic Preservation Commission. And one item or two. Yep. So Taylor, I'm going to turn it over to you. You should have a copy of the proposed bylaws headed in your packet I-8. My understanding is they were old, outdated, or non-existent, and it is a requirement.
Yes, so when I took office, Ms. Jane Burdett, my chairwoman for HBC, notated that she could not find our bylaws, and I reached out to archives, she could not find our bylaws, and Heather's files, there were no bylaws, so we don't have any HBC bylaws. So Ms. Jane and I, we got these from the state. This is kind of a template that the state uses. A lot of it's just basic stuff. The big change for us is going to be meeting. We're going to have regular meetings. Set date is going to be the first Monday of each month. And then we are also going to be allowed to dismiss members if they are not partaking. I have a couple members that have not partaken in any of my meetings so far. I've been in office since June, and right now I can't ask those members off the board. But with these new bylaws, I'll be able to say, hey, you're a non-participant in this organization. Thank you for your service, but we have people that would like to be on this board that want to participate and want to have a say-so in our community. So this is definitely a need and a requirement for the state for our HBC and our certified local government status that we discussed earlier.
You gonna be able to have enough to have a quorum to?
Oh yeah, I
approve
mean
it?
we've got a good group right now, and I will say this will probably open 2 more seats for us. So just a heads up, we should have maybe 2 more seats open up for potential new members.
One thing, I was at that meeting, they were all, the ones that were present, I agree with Taylor, they were all very actively engaged. The chairman did a great job. It was a very efficient meeting, very well done, handled a couple of issues with people that wanted things done. I mean, they were all active, engaged, and looked like they were interested in being there, and they knew why they were there and what they were doing.
And they've been great. I mean, we've had a couple work sessions. I really want to do a joint work session between my DDA board and my HBC board moving forward. Make sure we're on the same page of our expectations moving into 2022. I think those boards, they work hand in hand. You talk about the facade grant. We see the improvements to Baby Lanes. I have a facade grant application from Fund 101. Our HPC board, any facade grant improvements has to come before HPC first for their guidance, and then would pass over to DDA. So it's important to me that I have 2 boards that work together and understand what's going on and want to be there. That's my biggest thing. I want to be able to have members on these boards that want to be there and want to partake in the things we have going on in our city, because we have so many exciting things moving forward.
Question from Ms. Wheeler. Do we need to ensure ordinance symmetry with regards to the vacancy provision so that this wouldn't usurp whatever ordinance provision set for the nomination and appointments?
Yes, I was looking at that right now. It's section 5829. It says removal from membership provisions that the commission can adopt rules and standards to include bylaws for removal. So I was looking to make sure that nothing you got in here would conflict with what we have, and I'll double check that, but that was what I was looking at.
So staff's recommendation will be to accept the bylaws as affirmative unless the city attorney finds conflict within the city ordinance, and that they would be invalid until such time as an ordinance modification can be drafted.
I'll put that in form of a motion.
Motion to hear second.
Second.
Any further comments? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker?
Yes.
Councilmember Reed? Councilmember Head?
Yes.
Next item for council's consideration is discussion of term expirations for city committees. I don't need that. It's on my phone.
Item 9.
Item 9, second page.
So labeled I-9, or headed I-9, is just a list of all of the city and county joint committee. And I highlighted all of the seats that are about to expire or already have expired, just so everyone can be aware of who we need to start reaching out to or, talking to about potential nominations.
So we know that we've got some of these that needs to be put back on or replaced if somebody else wants to be on these. I think this is an old list.
This is Carson.
Yeah, this is a new one. This is a newer list.
I'm finding a few new lists. We did DDA, HBC, tree board I redid.
The IDA one's different.
Okay.
And I think it says, like Ms. Dr. Barbara Worthy. I think, did you put her back on, did we put her back on there?
She was reappointed?
I believe she was reappointed.
Mhm.
So there may be a new one that we did last year.
I have to check in y'all's files. So IDA and,
I guess we just know that there's some that need to be replaced, and we'll get
right,
a,
no action taken.
no
for this
action
one,
needed,
just
just discussion, so.
Making everyone aware.
But, you know, it's toward the end of the year, we're always looking for people, and it generally goes through July, and we're still asking for people.
And the county, I believe, runs like an ad of available seats in the paper. We might consider possibly doing that.
I think they take applications
Yeah,
and
they
stuff.
will.
But I don't think we've ever done that way. All right, so just know that that's coming up. You've got a list. Some of these maybe have been reappointed, but the ones that's expiring this year, you at least know the ones that are expiring this year on there. If we need to put somebody new on there or something. All right. Is there any other business?
Just a real quick executive session to cover personnel.
All right. Got a few more minutes you can spare. I need a motion to go into executive session for personnel.
So moved.
A motion, I hear a second. Call for a vote.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker?
Yes.
Councilmember Lee?
Yes.
Councilmember Heck?
Yes.
Got it. No good.
That's right.
Dan, we missed you at the budget meeting.
Did you?
I did.
Who was speaking of it?
No, you, not really.
Ryan Tucker personally gave $10,000. That's crazy.
PPT.
Ryan's gonna dress up like an elf.
All right, we're back in regular session.
Did you share how much money the chief raised for?
You raised a lot.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second. All in favor, say go Braves.
Go Braves.
Oh, boy.
I'm handed the bag at the grand slam.